Good evening, good evening. Welcome back to Blitzball Champ Gaming here on the U to the Tube. I'm your host, Blitzball Champ Jason Ingram. So, wanted to get on here and talk about a topic that's caused quite a good bit of controversy, especially considering it wasn't that long ago that this game got announced. And I know for me, I was very excited for this game and when it got announced. But some things have come up. Some more details about what this game has. So, not that long ago, for a Sony State of Play in June, we had Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles announced, which will be releasing September 30th of this year. Now, there's a couple of things to note as more details have been shared about this. Let me just run through them right quick, and then we'll go from there. So, to break it down, shout out to @Genki_JPN on X/Twitter for providing this info. Okay, Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles details. Enhanced version for modern platforms. It's based on the original Final Fantasy Tactics game, the original PS1 title. Brand new UI. No War of the Lions content. Yeah, let me repeat that again. No War of the Lions game content. No new submissions or new characters. So, pretty much no Baltier, no Luso. Uses the original music. So, the original score, original soundtrack. There will be new added conversations written by OG director Yasumi Matsuno. The script will be edited and rewritten by OG writer Yasumi Matsuno for voiceover. Fully voiced in Japanese and English. So full voiceovers. Classic OG version also included. You know, you can switch between the enhanced and the OG version. This project started after a Final Fantasy XIV collaboration in 2018 with full development starting after the development of Final Fantasy XVI. So that's pretty much how this all came about. The original Final Fantasy Tactics, which came out in 1997, took 13 months to make. There are 3 difficulty options: casual, standard, and tactical, which I assume casual is the lowest, tactical is the hardest. You can change the difficulty at any time throughout the game, anytime. You can fast forward and auto save during battles and other QOL enhancements. You can get Cloud as a companion much earlier than the game. Now, originally, it used to, you couldn't get them until, I believe, chapter 5? Or it was chapter 4. I think it was chapter 4. Yeah, you couldn't get them until chapter 4. So, yeah, those are the details. And I know what has been sparking a lot of controversy is the fact that it's not including War of the Lions content. So it's not accounting for that version, which originally came out on the PSP. Now, in an interview on SquareEnixGames.com, one of the questions was asked that why did they decide to focus on updating the original Final Fantasy Tactics instead of the War of the Lions version. This was the answer, and I quote, pardon me, says, I and the other members of this development team were not directly involved in the War of the Lions, but I do believe that the content in that game did fully meet expectations for players at that time. However, as we look back on everything nearly 30 years later, during the creation of this game, we asked ourselves what our team, those who created the original Final Fantasy Tactics, could do to bring this game to a new generation of players. It was through considering this question that we came to the conclusion that the most appropriate path for us was to pay respect to the original game's experience and recreate that in the best form possible. End quote. There's another question, a follow-up question of this. Did you consider adding elements from Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions like Baltier, Luso, the Onion Knight, the Dark Knight jobs, which those two job classes, debuted in the War of the Lions version? This was their answer, and I quote, we did, of course, consider the addition of new jobs, abilities, and characters, including the jobs featured in War of the Lions. However, the original version of the Final Fantasy Tactics is a very complete game, both from a game design and story perspective. If we were to make major changes, it would only be a loss for not only the fans of the original game, but also those new to the title. With this in mind, our first step in reviving Final Fantasy Tactics in the present was to adhere to the original and put a spotlight on the original game's characters and jobs, as well as the original gameplay experience. The development team were passionate when it came to bringing an experience as close to the original as we could. And as a result, we have recreated and used the original VFX and SFX, voice effects and sound effects. Something I hope, or visual effects and sound effects, of course. Something I hope fans of the original in particular will enjoy as they play. End quote. Very interesting. Very, very interesting choice of words. Another thing I wanted to mention, there was a question that was asked, what was the biggest challenge you faced when creating Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles? And I think this explains why I think they really decided to not include War of the Lions. Check this out. It says, and I quote, there were a number of major challenges, but all of them stemmed from the fact that the master data and source code from the original game no longer existed. This isn't to say that they were mishandled or poorly managed or anything like that. Keeping that kind of data wasn't a normal thing to do at the time. In those days, we didn't have the sort of robust resource management tools that exist today. And on top of that, the production workflow for the game was such that the Japanese version was produced first, and then we would create localized versions by overriding the data with that of other languages, including English. There was no such thing as online patches or updates, so unless there were any major reason to do something different, once you'd made the game, that was it. So I think it's fair to say that developing this game without any master data or source code was the biggest challenge. And then there was a follow-up asking how did they solve that problem. And they said, and I quote, put simply, by sheer force. We analyzed a number of existing versions of the game and reconstructed the programming of the original, but there were also times where we played the original game and it worked out by feel alone. The entire process was the result of cumulative hard work. On the one hand, working to implement new features, while behind the scenes our work was similar to porting an old arcade to the NES. The staff who worked on this game were real lifesavers. I can't thank them enough. End quote. So the person that was being interviewed was the director, Katsutoyo Mahiro. He was the one that was being interviewed. So what I take from that is, being that they didn't have any of the original source code and whatnot from the original game, then I took that as to it would be very unlikely that they would have any of that source code and data from War of the Lions. So I think that's one potential reason why that data is not included in this upcoming version. I just find it really, really odd that there would be such focus on making this as close to the original as much as possible, when the most recent version was War of the Lions. I just find that really interesting. Because the thing is, the original Tactics came out in 97. War of the Lions came out in 2007. So, I don't know, y'all. I have a hard time. I'm having a hard time with this. I mean, it is a letdown. I will say it is a letdown due to the fact that the War of the Lions version had, you know, the extra pieces of content with the story, battles, the bonus characters, and Baltier and Luso, um, the extra job classes, and the Onion Knight and Dark Knight, which, I mean, those were the only two bonus job classes. Um, Multiplayer. I mean, War of the Lions version had multiplayer, which I would have loved for them to consider, especially for this version that they're bringing to modern day consoles. But I don't know. I don't know. And then again, the multiplayer version was only in the PSP version. Like, I don't believe it was in the iOS version. So, uh, I just, I don't know. I just think it's a bummer. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Final Fantasy Tactics is in my top 5 all time favorite RPGs. I mean, I even still own a copy of the original Tactics on PlayStation 1. But, I mean, they are doing some extras with the Ivalice Chronicles that wasn't in the original, even though they're basing the main overall picture on the original. That's what they're building off of. So, like I said, it's not the end all be all. It is kind of a bummer though, because I still think the War of the Lions version was the better version than the original. But I mean, let's keep it real. The original's not trash. A long ways from it. I know some fans out there will probably, see this as a deal breaker. And I mean, I get it. I get it. But I'm still going to get this game. Because like I said, I don't even have a PSP or a Vita anymore. So I'm definitely going to get this game. And I'm just really curious to see how this game does, even with what they throw in there. And if it could still be, the top tier Final Fantasy Tactics that I've always enjoyed and loved. One thing I'm very curious about a couple of things though with this, like kind of going between the enhanced version and the classic version, just to kind of get a better idea of how each looks. And the fact that there's 3 difficulty options, that's something that they didn't have before. So I'm very curious as to how they scale the difficulties, because there's casual, standard, and tactical. Like, I'm very curious to see what tactical looks like. You know what I mean? Um, and then you can get Cloud much earlier in the game. So it makes me wonder how much earlier. Because in the original, you couldn't get him until Chapter 4. So I'm very curious as to when, how much earlier will you be able to get him? You know what I mean? So, and it'll be very interesting to play through this game with a full voice cast. So that's unique. That's very unique. So, I mean, there's definitely some pros and cons to this. I don't think we'll have to worry about any broken text or any translation issues, so at least there's that. I do expect the game to run smooth, even with the new UI and such. I'm just, like I said, I'm still going to enjoy this game. Because after all, let's keep it real, y'all. The original was just as great. It might not have been better than the War of the Lions version because they added more, but it's still a phenomenal game. So, like I said, I still plan on getting it. And even, looking at the new UI, it looks interesting. It looks clean. It looks crisp. So, I'm very curious. And like I said, Lord willing, I plan on streaming my playthrough of this game. But like I said, I do understand how a lot of people feel. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they can add War of the Lions content down the road as DLC. I mean, I heard that many fans were mentioning that I guess that could happen. But, I'm not going to hold my breath on that. But we're still getting an incredible title that did so well even before War of the Lions even was a thing. So, at least there's that. But I'm looking forward to it. But let me know what y'all's thoughts are. How do y'all feel about the details of Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles? How do y'all feel about no War of the Lions content being included in this release? Are you still planning on getting it? Let me know your honest thoughts. I would love to hear from y'all. But yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell while you're at it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. For Blitzball Champ Gaming here on the U to the Tube, my name is Blitzball Champ Jason Ingram. Hope everybody has a blessed evening, and I will see y'all in the next video and our live stream. Peace, and later.